Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Gentleman yields back. Mr. Biggs, let me just ask you, I think you referenced in your comments that a diplomat, that would be a citizen of a foreign country who is residing in D.C. doing their diplomatic work, would be eligible to vote in a D.C. election. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, sir. It would. Even the Washington Post agrees with that assessment, and so noted, which is why the Washington Post opposed the D.C. Act.
So there'd be no requirement that there'd be a non-adversarial diplomat. An adversarial diplomat could vote just the same as a friendly diplomat.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And that's why what makes D.C. a little bit more pernicious than some of the others is Maryland has certain restrictions, California has restrictions on non-residents, non-citizens who are voting, who are residents, but D.C. does not.
Well, just the D.C. law says that you cannot be voting in any other country. So if somebody were voting in another country, they would not be allowed to vote in the Advisory Neighborhood Commission elections in D.C. or for the D.C. Council.
If I may respond to that, that's interesting because some nations that are authoritarian in nature, you would question, for instance, whether they're actually voting in another jurisdiction, and how are we going to monitor that?
Well, that was going to be my,
Yeah, well,
how do you monitor that?
If you read the D.C. law, what it says is that you can't be voting in another country, and this is punishable by 5 years in prison for fraud. So, I mean, if it meant that much to you, I suppose you could be voting in Russia or China and then sign up to vote in the D.C. school board elections. But if you did and you were found out, you could be, prosecuted and sent to jail for 5 years. And so I doubt that any of those 512 people who signed up are agents of foreign governments. In any event, federally and across the country, people who are registered foreign agents under FARA can vote. And people who've been convicted of offenses involving foreign agents like Michael Flynn or Paul Manafort, they still vote. And maybe we should reconsider that. But I mean, that strikes me as a bigger threat and something we could do something about in elections that mean something to the country.
Well, it means, if I may, it does, that means 512 people have their votes canceled out, perhaps, at least theoretically. So it should mean something to the voters of the city, should it not?
Mr. Chairman, I think it does. I think it says something about the integrity of the entire election and the foundation of it. But more so, the argument would be made and could be made that there's dilution of your vote. Now, 512, if that's the actual number, that's not much dilution, which is what the court actually held here in D.C. But the reality is, I'm not sure we're sure. I mean, I'm looking at the postcard that was sent out by the Elections Commission here in D.C. Just, if you want to register to vote, you just do the QR code. And so that makes it very interesting on who's registering to vote as well, Mr. Chairman.
Was the gentleman asking
Yes,
consent to make that part of the record?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am, as well as a letter dated May 6, 2024 by Chairman Stott.
Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman.
Well, Mr. Chair, we just spent 2.5